My name is Clarice Rosa Sharif, and I'm the Deputy Director of Public Programs for PEN America. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for coming tonight and for being here for this special celebration. I also want to thank Culture Project. We've presented this program here before, and this is a fitting venue that is recognized for presenting artistic work that amplifies marginalized voices. So we're really happy to be here tonight. This is an annual celebration, the celebration of PEN America's Prison Writing Program. And this is one of the beloved events at PEN America. When I started in the fall, my colleagues told me all about what happened on an evening like tonight, where we get to hear from the people who are inside, and they get to share their art with us. So this is an annual celebration that features writers, inmates from all across the country, and their original work will come to life thanks to an amazing cast of readers, most of whom are writers, but all of them are activists and deeply committed to the fight against mass incarceration and to social justice reform. I would like to thank them all for accepting our invitation and for being here tonight. They are sitting over here. Let's give them a round of applause. In your seats, you have a printed program with bios, and so please refer to the program for the bios. But let me thank them by name: Khalil Cumberbatch, Rachel Eliza Griffiths, Siri Hustvedt, Mitchell Jackson, Piper Kerman, Don Lundy Martin, Sarah Short, Jeffrey Toobin, John Wray, and Sunil Yapa. Thank you very much. So I'll be quick, a quick introduction to PEN America for those of you who might not know us. We're the largest branch of the world's leading international literary and human rights organization. We're also a membership organization of over 4,400 writers, editors, translators, and publishers. If you're already a member, thank you for your support. And if you're not and you're interested in joining us, please speak to me and to my wonderful colleagues outside, and we'll tell you all about the program, even a special discount if you join tonight. So please join us. We offer a wide range of programs. We have membership mingles, the World Voices Festivals of International Literature, promoting a global perspective through literature, as well as anti-censorship campaigns in support of at-risk or imprisoned writers at home and abroad. This year's festival, and I think that you have the brochure in your seat as well, will take place April 25th through May 1st, and it will be focused on Mexico and will bring together 150 writers from over 30 countries. For the first time ever last year, the festival had a regional focus on Africa. So this year, featured writers are Boris Akunin, Elizabeth Alexander, Carmen Boliosa, Marlon James, Paul Muldoon, Salman Rushdie, and many, many, many others. So please check online for the schedule. It's penworldvoices.org, and you have a hard copy in your seat. Last year, we had over 8,000 people attending the festival, and I hope that this year you will join us. The format tonight is very simple. We'll hear from Jackson Taylor, the director of a prison writing program, and then each reader will come to the mic and read their selections. I would like to thank Jackson Taylor, Tim Small, for the wonderful selections, of a wonderful pairing with our readers. So enjoy the show, and please welcome Jackson Taylor.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for coming. A couple of thank yous also. I'd like to call out our committee. This is a very dedicated group of men and women who read through 1,500 manuscripts annually to come up with the works that you're going to hear tonight. And our advocacy chair, Belle Chevigny, is here, and also our incomparable chair, Claudia Menza. Both have been stalwarts of this committee for a long time. I'm going to just read from my handbook that we publish, and we send this booklet free to any prisoner in the United States who writes and asks for it. And we thought it was important to just give a statement about what we believed in as a program. I'm not going to read them all, but a few of them will give you an idea. The first one is writing is a skill that can be practiced. And unlike many skills, writing well is useful in almost every avenue of employment, education, and daily life. Writing is a skill that generates other skills. We at Penn support more educational programming, not less. It is a well-proven fact that education reduces recidivism by high double-digit percentages. Men and women who are incarcerated and who work in the prison industry should not come out worse than when they went in. We believe guards and other prison workers should be included in educational grants to counter the pressure of this work and also take away some of the admonitory impulses or jealousy when they see somebody serving a sentence who's trying to apply themselves in an educational way. I'm going to stop there, and if you'd like to get the booklet, you can always order it online at penn.org. But I would like to say we need money. We are starting a new initiative. We are going to be partnering with a facility in Long Island City called Our Children. And this is a place where mothers who have sentences have their children housed and going to school, have their meals prepared, have care while they're serving their sentences. They tend to be shorter sentences, of course. And when they come out, they're reunited with their children. And they can live there as long as they need to get integrated back into society. And they have a need for educational programming, and we've met with them, we like them, they like us. We are planning to do classes there, creative writing classes, that will use creative methods to develop the expository essay and make these women college ready. And we thought they would need a class or two. Each cohort would have 15 women. And when we met with them, they said they could use 6 classes. And that means 90 women are there who could benefit. And there are others there, but that was what they thought would be the population who'd be interested in this class. Each cohort of 15 women costs $40,000 a year to run. And it's very intensive, year-long training, and the goal is at the end of the year, these women will be ready to do the college application, and we're working on partnerships with schools that will provide scholarships for them. So I say that because somewhere in this room is somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who might have a foundation or might have a friend who'd be interested. And I think the most important part of this is that the children who are housed there will see their mothers working to go to college, and I think that's really, really important. So without further ado, our program tonight. Thank you.
My name is Dawn Lundy Martin, and I'll be reading Dear Voyage by Brian Batchelor, who is at the Minnesota Correctional Facility in Stillwater in Bayport, Minnesota. And this poem was actually nominated for a Pushcart Prize, Dear Voyage. Dear gravestone, dear crusted gravestone, granite mortal marker, dear lichen, dear vine, dear dirt, ditch and spade, salutations. Dear death calm waters, liquid slack, dear raft, anchorless and adrift, dear hunched horizon, dear looming dark, still air, stale and flat, dear disorienting gloom, dear cypress oar, dear compass, rusted and soot-stained, dear farewell beacon, amorous star that breaks the black. Hello.
My name is Rachel Eliza Griffiths. This poem is called Atmosphere Colors by Lorraine K. Bennett Kisnitsky, who is at Adams County Jail in Council, Idaho. Atmosphere Colors by Black Rain. The walls were creamy white with shades of gray, while floor and ceiling match their color. I wonder who was their decorator. Not exciting, but that's not what it's for. Atmosphere colors for concrete and steel, shades of nothing for something to blend in. No pretty rainbows to shape how you feel, just shiny, blurry reflections of sin. Everybody wears the same colors in, except for the guards who watch over us, or those ladies in white who cook for us, or those DOC guards driving the bus. That's what we get to see doing our time, stuck in a county jail for doing crime.
Hello, I'm Jeff Toobin, and I'm going to read a poem by Timothy James Burke, who was at the Corrections Reception Center in Orient, Ohio. And the poem is called The Plight of the Bumblebee. This evening I picked up a bumblebee, dusty and haggard and fallen to the earth, his frail wings tattered like wind-beaten sails. I placed him in a plastic jar, a refuge in which to rest for the night, to eat some fruit and replenish himself. I knew he was doomed. Whether kept as a captive or set free again, his end would come quickly. He would always be broken, useless wings folded atop his back. He would never fly. But this bee didn't know this. He only knew to find his way home. And when I released him, his limitations were my invention.
Hello, everyone. I'm Courtney Fillard, and I will be reading Junk Menagerie by Haley Teggett. I still can't cry. What's the deal? I'm jealous of those who can cry for themselves. They can feel. They miss their kids. Me? I miss my mom. We love moms here. Moms are the only ones who write. I don't know. Maybe I'm still in shock. I see other girls sent off to prison for the rest of their youths, yet I'm not scared. I'm sad, but not. I feel numb. Just time, then more time. My life's over. It's over. Done. Live fast, die slow. People say fight it. People say own it and show remorse. I just want to put it behind me. I wanted out long before my arrest. Truth be told, I felt this odd relief when I was handcuffed. There is this girl in the bunk next to mine. She's pregnant. A lot of them are. And in for violating probation with a dirty drug test. Her husband is doing 2 years for breaking her ribs. 2 years. And I could be looking at 10 to 15 for conspiracy. Oh well. 2 words. Oh well. Whatever. 2 words. Not guilty. My nickname in here is Charlotte Off Heroin. Some girls introduced the new inmates to me saying, "This is our little Charlotte off heroin, and we're all glad she's feeling better." Yes, we are. And oh, she's feeling better? Oh, good. She looked like a ghost a week ago. I'm sure if you Google my name, my mug shot will pop up. I'm not proud. I'd just like to know what everyone from high school thinks about me. My arrest was on the 6 o'clock news and in the newspaper. I asked my mom to send me the clipping. I wear a wrist bracelet with my mugshot in black and white. Of all the times I spent practicing my mugshot picture in the mirror, of course they bum rushed me when I had washed my face before bed. No makeup. Oh, the petty things I have to think about. I can tell it's sunset time by the way the light is showing through the tiny windows that you can't see out of. Look to your right when heading downtown. You'll see the tiny windows. That's where I'm at. Lying on my bunk, daydreaming, writing. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. Some days I just want to swallow a bottle of shampoo. Girls in here constantly talk about their drug days and say how, as soon as they get out of here, they're going to get messed up. They don't care. They must have no families. And there are girls in here with no families, no money on their books, no letters, no one to call. I'm lucky for what and who I have. And never again will I jeopardize that. Never, ever again.
My name is Siri Hustvedt, and I am reading Saints and Rebels by Monique Danielle Moody. She is in Mountain View Unit in Gatesville, Texas. Surrounded by terror, angels misled by devils, neither saints nor rebels will grasp the concept of heaven from a forbidden land with no trespasses. There is no lavish protection if vultures have ravaged possessions. Good fruit are devoured and desolate. Their plot is to kill with obsession with no particular direction. They are destructive and reckless. We cry out, "Oh God, please help us." But are our cries accepted by saints or rebels? We don't even care who responds. We don't even care who left us. We refuse to be cursed. So where is the one who will bless us? Rumor has it that we will have to choose a side. So where will you choose to reside? Will you choose the pain of the pious or the way of the insurgent? There is no way around it. There is no way to circumvent. Our souls will transform into angels or devils, one or the other. Who are you, a saint or a devil?
Hi, I'm Sunil Yapa. I'm going to be reading So Far Across the Yard by Jean Walker, who's in the Estelle unit in Huntsville, Texas. So Far Across the Yard. Her father's tools have turned to rust while she was learning to die. Her towering bones now crammed in heat-rotted boxes, curbside for Monday morning pickup, fancy fruit. A few have come to touch these tools, to tell us what he did. The heavy lead like hammers as big as the crates they lay in. The empty wooden tombs now void of any instruments except a red-brown dust, the grime of life and living. We are safe now, so far across the yard, free to fly back to our tiny 10-fingered little boy bodies, free to see the shapes for ourselves. We have collected one of every leaf that has fallen since she left, and still he is here, his piercing insect eye squinting at the squatting wire before him, my own shapeless little tree beyond the glass. His shadow seizes me, and even today his eyes are your eyes, and at night they are a myriad moving reflections, a fabulous gilded moon, and I am his earth.
Good evening. My name is Khalil Cumberbatch, and I'm going to be reading an excerpt from Bombs by Ezekiel Caliguri in Minnesota Correctional Facility in Lino Lakes, Minnesota. They locked us down the same day somebody planted bombs that went off at the Boston Marathon. We all knew it was coming. We usually did. We got our 2 lockdowns a year no matter what. And that was without the ones we got as a result of the chaos that kicked off when it did. Routine lockups were anticipated for months sometimes, with the gossip mongers anticipating them at every count. Most people liked them. I used to love them. They were breaks for guys from their prison jobs as welders or machinists with faces and clothes full of soot, or janitors wiping snot and shit from the walls. They were breaks from all of the tension of maintaining aloof and indifferent personas hoping for some rest. There's a certain spiritual strength it takes to get by long stretches in the joint. That or a certain ignorance that at times can seem like the same thing. I often used my days locked in my cell as a time of spiritual restoration. I gave guys a break from having to talk to each other about all the same stuff we talked about every day. I used to need a break from my time, and the trade-off came from the modest stress of getting your cell turned upside down. Now, it seemed like we were constantly going on and coming off of lockdowns every few weeks. And if we weren't, we were constantly preparing for the next one. We just had one a few months before. I think I had just lost patience somewhere in between them. I didn't need the break. I needed the time. This time, we just hoped we'd get our canteen before they dropped the notice of the shakedown. The house was so dry, people were paying 4 times the cost of ramen noodles and beef summer sausages. I didn't have food in my canteen bag except for a single noodle and 1/3 of a roll of crackers and a sealed pack of chicken. We were just a day from getting our commissary when they slipped the memo on our bars at 9:30 the night before. It was the usual memo with the presumption printed on it, "Thank you for your cooperation." The news ignited the usual groans and guttural sounds in response to our never-ending string of disappointments. One guy screamed with frustrations until his voice went hoarse. "You are an evil person, Sergeant!" But it was mostly caught by the wind and carried away. Then there were those that used it to congratulate themselves. "I told you, didn't I? I told you they were going to do this." I was surrounded on both sides by guys that didn't speak during lockdowns. The first night I got "they're bogus for this" from my friend CF on my right. I didn't hear his voice much after that. CF and I became close because we shared the same desperation. He was more manic, I was more depressive. Sometimes it made us hate each other. Sometimes we used our illnesses as our swords to fight with each other, a tit for tat at our varying levels of strength and weakness. Sometimes it would be the other way around, and it would be my mania challenging his depression. When we were in sync, we shared a vision of an artist collective and revival of all things that seemed to emancipate the people that lived in these cells. a couple of generations before that had now been ignored and forgotten from the history of this place. We also shared a sense of time and sanity and how they inevitably run out. On my left was the old man China, who is really not an old man, but a Laotinian man only a couple of years older than I am, who ran around the South Minneapolis at the same time I did. He's 20 years of the way through his sentence. He wears an extra scratchy personality on the outside, probably just to protect his sanity. There was a whole cluster of us cloaked in our own cells with mountains on our backs, connected amidst the catacombs. On the other side of CF was Jay, who was 14 when he got his life sentence, 26 when they gave it to him again. Next to Jay, there was Preach, who was 17 when he got his life sentence. Next to China was F. He was 17. Next to him, another 17 as well. Below us was the 20-year-old kid who was one of the first to get life without the possibility of parole. Next to him, Johnny, also 20 years into his life stint. The sting of time had left marks on all of us. They all still liked lockdowns, called them vacations. It was easier when I was younger and didn't think I deserved very much. I was 22 once, and these bricks didn't know me yet. With only 10 years left, these guys considered me halfway out the door. I kind of panicked. The timing was just bad, and I wasn't prepared. I hardly had any food in my bag, and what they fed us was the lowest and most vile form of food they could find, frozen and stashed somewhere for weeks or months. All of my water bottles were empty, so I was consigned to the noxious chemical taste of unfiltered tap water from the old well flowing through 100-year-old pipes. I had a bag of dirty laundry, hardly enough underwear to get me through the next few days. I was frustrated because I would lose typing days just weeks from a deadline. I would miss poetry class on Wednesday night, one of the only nights in my week where I felt an ease with the strictures that held me in place. I figured, though, if they shook us down right away in the morning, I could spend those days writing and maybe finish the book I was reading. I was reading A Right to Be Hostile, about the public schools to prison pipeline. It had taken me unusually long to read because I would get angry after a few pages and put it down. I might have the time now. It might keep me from obsessing over the food and the water and the treatment. I was better than this place, and I had proved it to myself over and over. I told my family this so often they were tired of hearing about it. I had been through so many of these during my prison bid or bit or stretch or piece or whatever we call it. There were something that I was ingrained in us. We used to cook meals in our hot pots and hand booze back and forth in the middle of the night. I had been through the 14-day lockdown when the old bruiser stomped that kid into a puddle. I had withstood a couple during the hottest weeks of summer. I had them where some wicked woman crouched down and counted our socks and dirty drawers and read letters from home when they brought dogs through, leaving paw prints on my blankets. I'd been in them during the holidays and during prison softball championships. I was locked down on my 32nd birthday and had a card signed by all of my friends, sent down the tier, one cell at a time. I'd had visitors turned away without explanation because of them. Guys even used to talk about the month-long routines going back to the 90s. The guys in B West broke dozens of windows with cartons of milk during their lockdown in 2004. Then winter came. In 1983, they broke 900 of them. They could be tough, but we created stories from them, part of the communal endurance that made us know we could still be human. Hopefully this one would be over in a few days, and none of this would matter then. But then there was always the something I knew I shouldn't have, but I thought I needed it anyway, something that if found, I would have to reschedule the next year of my life for. Most everyone has something that could possibly compromise them during these times. So I scrambled just like I always did during the first night of all the lockdowns I've ever been in, to hide things. I was never sure of what some brand new young cop would try to book me with. I have made a bid of staying reserved and cautious about the explosive elements of myself, a bomb of unexpressed knowledge and feeling about all I have seen about the way people are treated. I just didn't know how long before it exploded from me. I wanted to vent and yell something ignorant out of my bars, but that would just make me sound like so many other guys shouting like they were children reacting to punishments from their parents. I am not a child, and they certainly are not my parents. I couldn't waste the spiritual energy. I needed it all. It made me feel soft, though, or scared, because I couldn't react the way my heart told me I should. I convinced myself I got past that scared shit a long time ago. I sat and watched TV. The same footage of the bombing continued to play in a loop. It reminded me a little of 9/11. I was in a cell for that too. We waited in a limbo as all the networks brought their experts from abroad to shield their version of fear. We were supposed to be scared all over again. We were supposed to pull out our list of usual suspects and choose one or two to be angry at. My list was different from theirs. I tried to stay as detached from the footage as I usually was, as though from a world of fiction where these things didn't happen, where people didn't blow other people up. But I couldn't help but to feel the drop, the tapping of footsteps on the other side of the future, the rattling vibration of another inert shifting of how we see our world. The fear might have even come from the knowledge that these shifts happened so often now.
Hi, my name's Sarah Shord, and I have the honor to be reading for Juangelo L. Nelson, who's at Notting Way Correctional Center in Burkeville, Virginia. The poem's called Shakedown, Small White Empty Rooms. Inside these small white empty rooms, our echoes assume awkward dialects, strange distortions as if the walls willed mouths to mock our prayers, our pains. Inside these small, white, empty rooms, men bow, kneel before metal bunks, and quite literally eat where they shit, drink where they piss. Inside these small, white, empty rooms, men become hooked fish, angled carmine maws. Horrors unfold silently, and solitude conjures barbs of wide-eyed regret. Inside these small, white, empty rooms, dark blue shadows finger our privacies, rummaging through still frames of yellowed yesterdays, seeking contraband and ribbons of our hidden selves. Inside these small, white, empty rooms, fires burn, rage against the count and current of time, and we crease ourselves, relinquishing principle, exposing our indecencies, squatting and coughing, permitting intrusion, watching as our makeshift lives tumble, indifferently tossed.
Again, my name is Dawn Lundy Martin, and this time I will be reading Music by Sarah Allen, who's at the Homestead Correctional Institution in Florida City, Florida. Music. I hear a song, such a sad, sad song, yet beneath the words there's hope. I see tears of pain, of longing and regret. I hear dreams strum on a guitar. I crave to look at my life and retrace the past, which floats before me like ghost music. I want to close my mind to the what-ifs, should-haves, and whys. I want to glance away and drop my head in shame. I don't want to hear your honey-dripped voice reminding me of what I don't have. I want to shake you off, close my eyes, and forget. But your music is insistent, creeping into the deep crevices of my mind, prying open my eyes and forcing me to look. So I do, straight into the abyss of nevers. You tease me with your chant, seduce me with your blues, make me miss what I never had. Thanks.
Hi there, my name's John Wray, and I'm going to be reading The Centaur's Son, which is an excerpt from an essay by Burl N. Corbett at the State Correctional Institution in Albion, Pennsylvania. And this essay has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize. When I look back now, at the age of 67, it seems as if I were predestined to become a writer. How else can I explain all the coincidences and twists of fate that led me toward eventual publication? The journey began with my birth in 1947 on a sheep farm in southeastern Pennsylvania. As I lay in my crib, sleeping only 3 crow miles away in another small sandstone farmhouse, was a 15-year-old boy who was dreaming of graduating from high school and leaving for Harvard. His name was John Updike, and although our paths wouldn't cross for another 36 years, when they did, my life would change. My grandmother was one of the last one-room school teachers in the county, and she taught me to read when I was only 4. When my kindergarten teacher discovered that I could read, she allowed me to read the other children to sleep after lunch. Then, as I stayed awake, lost in the Word, she sneaked a quick cigarette or flirted with the janitor. During my elementary years, I read everything on my father's bookshelves, from the bombastic twaddle of the Bomba the Jungle Boy juvenile series to the unabridged version of Moby Dick. In addition, I tore through the school's classroom libraries, culminating in an orgy of reading in 6th grade when I set an unapproachable record of writing one-page book reports on the 150-odd books that I had read. And somehow, I had found the time to write a series of fantastic sci-fi tales set on each of the 9 planets, my first creative attempts. I continued reading heavily, if indiscriminately, throughout junior high, finding that I had an affinity for the gritty urban realism of Nelson Algren and James T. Farrell, and the lurid white trash tales of Erskine Caldwell. But when I found my father's hidden copy of Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer when I was in the 9th grade, suddenly my definition of literature evolved. This, I told myself, is how I want to write. Although I overheard my father dismissing Miller as just another pornographer, I was captivated by his unique style, his love of language, and above all, his passion. His fervent criticisms of America's failure to live up to her promises, even though written in the 30s, would soon be appropriated by the social critics of the 60s, and his sexual hijinks rendered quaint by the decade's rapidly declining morals. But he instilled in me the belief that I could succeed if only I kept trying, and he introduced me to authors I had never heard of: Lawrence Durrell, August Strindberg, Knut Hamsun, and a host of 19th century French and Russian writers, among others Flaubert and Gogol. Miller, an autodidact himself, was the breed's best teacher, an irony that did not escape me. Then in 10th grade, the first of my coincidences occurred. My new English teacher, Mrs. Ethel Lipnack, was a native Brooklynite who by some unfathomable happenstance had made landfall at my backwater high school. The first day of class, she asked each of us to write a personal essay that described our aspirations and hopes. The length and language were up to us. It wouldn't be graded, and no one except her would ever read it. Most of my classmates suspected that the assignment was a ploy by her to gain the whip hand over us, and either refused to comply — the essay was strictly voluntary — or warily scribbled a few paragraphs of inoffensive blackmail-proof pap. But I, who was in danger of becoming what was then called a juvenile delinquent, wrote a lengthy Miller-inspired screed that explained in surrealistic excess why I hated school and intended to become either a professional trapper in the Alaskan wilderness or a renegade writer a la Henry Miller. After I handed it in, I half expected to be hauled before the principal, a dour ex-Marine, notorious for his utter lack of humor. But instead, Mrs. Lipnack complimented me for my audacity, praised my small talent, and encouraged me to continue writing. "I'll read anything you wish to write," she promised. And just like that, a potential troublemaker who ran with the wrong crowd was gently nudged onto a different path. When I confessed my admiration for all things Miller, she disclosed that she had grown up in the neighborhood that he had described in Black Spring and Tropic of Capricorn. She even remembered Miller's witchy, bitchy wife, June, striding down the block in a long black cape, wielding a foot-long cigarette holder like a scepter. And while Miss Lipnack deplored Miller's excessive sexual passages, and as a Jew was leery of his borderline anti-Semitism, she never criticized my choice of reading material. She was an old school liberal who would defend to the death the right to free expression. So, she read my bad poetry, introduced me to Faulkner and Hemingway, and proofread my manuscripts. Her class became a welcome oasis in the intellectual desert of my provincial high school. A sterile wasteland staffed by a goodly number of incompetents, not so secret boozers, a practicing pedophile, a semi-loonly fabulist, and a depressing variety of shop-worn geezers limping unsteadily to retirement. Miss Lipnack convinced me that I had talent, gave me courage, showed me the way. I looked forward to her daily class, and then one morning she wasn't there. Her husband had died. The substitute teacher, a tall, lanky, shabbily dressed gentleman in his 60s, introduced himself as Mr. Updike and informed us that he'd be our teacher until Mrs. Lipnack returned. He admitted that he had no idea what we had been studying, mostly nothing. Ours was what was called the general class, whose fate was to accept our diploma with the left hand, pick up a shovel or wrench with the other, and proceed forthwith to the nearest ditch or factory. So he expressed his intention to just talk about whatever crossed his mind, with the hope that we might learn something that would serve us in life. Then he began to speak, and what a performance it was. Leaping from subject to subject like an ibex sporting atop the Alps, he paced nervously to and fro, cast beseeching looks at his befuddled audience. His style was that of a gifted, if slightly confused, bard. And he not only overcame the initial hostility of our disinterested class, but won it over by dint of his charismatic personality. For 3 days, each class was more of the same, extemporaneous disquisitions on whatever his hyperactive mind lit upon. He mentioned his son's recently published novel, Rabbit Run, in passing, admitting that its theme was probably a bit too mature for our tastes. And it was evident that he had little expectations that any of us would ever read it. During Mr. Wesley Updike's brief tenure, our class may not have learned how to diagram sentences. I doubt if even H.L. Mencken could have taught us that. But over 40 years later, not a single class reunion attendee had forgotten him. And when I eventually read his son John's fictionalized tribute to his father, The Centaur, I immediately recognized its hero as the man who had held our semi-civil class of rural hooligans spellbound until Mrs. Lipnack returned from burying her husband. A novel-worthy feat, if there ever was one. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Rachel Eliza Griffiths. This poem is called Library Cloudburst by Robert C. McCree. Library Cloudburst. The clouds are bursting, whispers the librarian in my ear, peering with me out the plate glass window. Be prepared. Shortly, June bug-sized globules pelt our sanctum. As winds pick up across the river, upon the pane, Quasimodo dribbling onto Rumpelstiltskin, splashing over Pap Finn, dripping downward into drooling Henry Jekyll, mouth split, teeth fringed with storm fright. Come, the matron commands, wielding squeegees. Mortality impinges. She dances me into the summer shower heat, where we mop them up, tote them inside, and reshelf the queer ducks of classic lit in drying, dewy decimal order.
My name is Piper Kerman, and I am going to read Living Dead by Tracy Lee Kendall from the Cofield Unit in Tennessee Colony, Texas. Pain manifest absolute. The crimson tide rolls in. Dark skies indifferent, blood rain over all. Black death looks in silence, symbiotic to the hurt, desensitized in stillness, waiting for the fires to flare up again. It wasn't always this way. I was human once. I could feel and hope, dream and love. Something took it all away, cast me to the ground, trampled out life. Left behind in isolation, derelict shadow. Abomination am I, embraced with only evil. Diametrical vitality, heart inverted, sanity, a myth, eclipse of light, fallen spirit, abyss embodied.
I'm Courtney Fillard, and this is a piece entitled Touch Me by Anthony Craig, who is in Forest and Marionville, PA Correctional Facility. Summer is late. My heart words plucked out of the air some 40 years ago, when I was wild with love and torn almost in two. Scatter like leaves this night of whistling wind and rain. It is my heart that's late. It is my song that's flown. Outdoors all afternoon, under a gunmetal sky staking my garden down. I kneeled to the crickets, trilling underfoot, as if about to burst from their crusty shells. And like a child again, marveled to hear so clear and brave a music pour from such a small machine. What makes the engine go? Desire, desire, desire. The longing for the dance stirs in the buried life. One season only, and it's done. So let the battered old willow thrash against the window panes in the house of pain.
Siri Hustvedt again, and I am reading The Promise of Hills by Charles Oliver, who is in Rutledge State Prison in Columbus, Georgia. It quiets me still to see him as I leaf through an album of flat smiles and brief poses. My father, bundled in an old brown coat, his face set to the hill before him, walking away through a scuffle of dead leaves. At first, Not long after his death, the photo seemed dark and alarming. The shades of trees closed in to choke his way, their cone branches pale, bare-boned, clawing at a lonely man in a frayed coat. And from the forest leaves shrouded in mists come the musty scent of earth decayed in the fall of seasons. He wore that same shabby brown coat when he came to visit me. A new patch here or there, a fresh splotch of paint to mark the long passage of years. He'd set himself to face this hill, to trudge through the seasons of a son's life sentence, to be the love it was so hard to show. We dared not speak of death that last time, though his face was only a shadow. I noticed his hands, once proud and calloused, helpless now against the cancer that fed on hope, folded at the end as if to pry, saying they had done all they could do. I hold the picture before me like a prayer, and I fall through to you, feel the bright leaves crisp under our feet, brush the arms of guarding trees, and drink in the chill breeze through our poor peasant coat, the patched and tattered habit of a monk. Warmth enough as we set our face to the path and the promise of hills.
I'm Jeffrey Toobin. I'm reading an excerpt from The Colfax Crew by Tim Boland of the Minnesota Correctional Facilities in Lino Lakes, or perhaps Lino Lakes, Minnesota. It's pretty long, but it's great, so settle in. The van's windows are unsmoked, leaving us naked to the strange looks that come as we rumble through the streets of Minneapolis. Nobody knows exactly who we are or what we do, or more importantly, what we've done. There's no scarlet letter on the van's white paint marking us as pariahs, but the passers-by, ignorant of our plight, suspect something is off by a degree. Instinct whispers that 7 grown men don't roll around town in a stretched-out Ford Super Duty cargo wagon for no reason. Our origin, they think, traces back to one institution or another. We could be mental patients, they think, poor sons of bitches out for a therapist-approved joyride. We could be a wheelchair basketball team, they think, poor sons of bitches out for a crosstown scrimmage. We could be full-grown delinquents, they think, poor sons of bitches out for a day on the labor gang, and it's bingo on the latter. We are inmates at the minimum security camp at the Lino Lakes State Prison. All 7 of us have jumped through enough hoops, dodged enough heat, done enough time, eaten enough shit, acted like convict saints, whatever you want to call it, to the point of being deemed compliant and non-dangerous enough to leave the prison camp for 10 hours a day, 4 days a week, and work on a construction crew. The people in charge call us Crew 7, as in the 7th of 8 crews that are based at the prison camp. But we call ourselves the Colfax Crew. It sounds more original and less institutional than plain old Crew 7. And we didn't just pull the name Colfax out of our ass either. It comes from the house we are building on Colfax Avenue in North Minneapolis. I am a cleanup specialist. I've found that the other guys on the crew avoid cleanup detail like the Mexican pasta salad that comes on our dinner tray every other Friday night. They would rather run the power saws and impact wrenches and things that go boom, bang, jing than bend over and pick up scraps or push a broom. There's no glory in the stoop laver, which is fine with me. I'm not here for glory. In fact, I've spent this particularly cold, wind-blown April morning getting my ass kicked by the weather and a caulk gun, which, if you're not familiar, is a bastard little apparatus that should never have been invented. My assignment, in general terms, was was to fire a clean stream of Vulcan 116 polyurethane sealant into the joints where the siding meets the trim, and then again where the trim meets the windows, so as to seal off the house from the elephants. A straightforward task, I thought, but no. This Vulcan is some serious product, and therefore impossible for a frozen-fingered amateur to bargain with. As I found out in grand style, there is more goddamn white gunk on my clothes than on the goddamn house. The work is not glamorous, nor is the pay. My wage is $1 an hour, and the state takes half of that to put towards my court-ordered restitution, of which the tab currently stands somewhere south of 12 grand. After deductions, I take home $20 a week, barely enough to buy the essentials, but I don't do it for the money. A dollar an hour is more of an insult than a wage. The Colfax crew, for me, has little to do with dollars or construction and a lot to do with things that are only meaningful and personal, but sacred, transcendent, on fire with the same forces that made the stars. I get paid in currencies that don't show up on the paycheck. I get paid in freedom. How do you put a numerical value on the feeling of being unshackled to the reality imposed on me by circumstance and the Department of Corrections? You don't. How do you monetize fresh air and the ability to shed layers of accumulated poison from years of living in vile and unnatural environments? You can't. Think about it. You put a mouse in a cage for several years and subject it to all sorts of stresses and strip it naked and make it piss in a cup for the sake of security and deprive it of sex and privacy and dignity, and then cram a bunch of other mice into the cage that are subjected to the same myriad stresses and deprivations, and so forth, and then you subject them all to each other. Do that to a mouse and see if it comes out of that cage unmarked by the experience. It's just like the warden tells Cool Hand Luke. You got to get your mind right, boy. Well, that's what I do. I get my mind right. Every day I'm out on the Colfax crew, I feel a little more like a man and less like a mouse. I get paid in trust. Only a few years ago, inside the penitentiary walls, it would have been inconceivable to be trusted with a pair of plastic kindergarten scissors, let alone an air gun that could shoot a 16-penny nail right through your skull. And beyond the deadly equipment, we are trusted to remain on the job site and not go AWOL. There's no physical barrier stopping us from becoming fugitives, but we know there would be extreme hell to pay if we did. The guillotine would fall on the whole crew, the whole camp, not just the asshole who took the liberty, and I'll speak for myself. I lost most, if not all, of my credibility well before I got to prison. I mean, I'm still 10 different shades of train wreck, but at the same time, I made it a point to rebuild a certain level of trust with others as well as myself. After coming this far, it's a priceless feeling to be trusted again. I get paid in perspective. For as long as I've failed to grasp the nearsightedness caused by long-term confinement, from the inside of a prison cell, the world becomes small and the view narrow and distorted. As a result, I've gotten used to operating on the automatic, unconscious belief that somehow my problems registered on the scale of importance. Being out in the living, breathing landscape enlarges the view by multitudes, and not just by what I see, but by what I think and how I perceive. In the first 5 minutes of my day out with the crew, it became clear that my biggest crisis is of the world's least concern. And I've changed my mind about forever. It wasn't long ago I had no concept of linear time. It was just this great big elastic expense with no beginning or end. Call it shadow, moronic infatuation with what's happening and what's possible right in the very moment. But having spent a good part of my 30s in a cage and having soldiered through a marathon of pain and loss and disgrace and endless hours of quiet introspection, and having felt the unmistakable burn of being slowly expunged from relevance, I realized that time is a finite quality. And now, 6 years older, a little grayer, a little wiser, a little less prone to irrational impulse, I think, Jesus, I am not a kid anymore. I better make use of the time I've got left. Toward the end of the afternoon downslope, we get back in the van. Everyone's dog-tired from the day's campaign. Some of the guys doze off by the time we get on the highway, but not me. I want to look out the window and take in the day's waning freedom. I want to revisit all the things I left behind, to be acutely aware of my past, to acknowledge it, to own it. Every day we pass the baseball field at the University of Minnesota, and I see my ghost circa 1997, hotshot freshman shortstop, rounding the bases after hitting a belt-high fastball over the center field fence. Sure as hell of my place in the universe. We pass by the Minneapolis Farmers Market, and I see my ghost circa 2002, strolling along the aisles with my wife, picking out fresh tomatoes and asparagus, enjoying being young and in love, oblivious to the truths that would lie ahead. We pass by the Doubletree Hotel, and I see my ghost circa 2007, strung out on coke, sitting on the back seat of a squad car, waiting for the cops to dig through my Chevy Malibu, and knowing what they would find, thinking my days were over when they found it. It's a strange sensation and tough on the heart, rolling along the same roads I've traveled 1 billion times and seeing haunted reminders of my former life, seeing its trajectory rising, and then at some unmapped point, hitting something cold and dark and hard and free-falling into blackness. The toughest part of the job, though, other than operating that goddamn caulk gun, is coming back to the prison at the end of the day. When the van pulls into the prison guards, I feel a surge of depressive reality course through my veins. Then the undertow of gravity after a bloody battle in the trenches, when a man is covered in dirt and sawdust and paint, and his ears ring from getting blasted with the megadecibels all day, and his fingers ache from frostbite's aftermath, and his back is sore from humping shingles up a 20-foot ladder. He feels like he should retire to his own abode and lay his head down on his own pillow. But as in all situations in the grand scheme, my situation is transient. I've got less than a year before this chapter of madness is over, and I'm released into the same world I inflicted my demons upon. Sometimes I stare at my wall calendar, not the part with the half-naked Scarlett Johansson staring back at me, but the part with the grid of months and weeks and days. It comes as a relief knowing this will be the last prison calendar I will ever own. It comes as a relief knowing I've already scraped the bottom and plunged about as low as a human being can plunge. It comes as a relief knowing there is no fear that tomorrow will bring the worst because yesterday already brought it. It comes as a relief knowing that life goes on no matter what the hell you do.
Hi, again, I'm Sunil Yapa. I'm going to read a poem called Switchblade by Anthony Craig, who's in the State Correctional Institute in Forest in Marionville, PA. Switchblade. Most of the past is lost, and I'm glad mine has vanished into blackness or whatever nowhere what we feel and what we do goes. But there were a few cool Sunday afternoons when my father wasn't sick with hangover, and the air in the house wasn't foul with anger, and the best china had been cleared after the week's best meal, so he could place on the table his violins to polish with their special cloth and oil. 3 violins he had arranged side by side in their velvet-lined cases, with enough room between for the lids to lie open. They looked like children in coffins, 3 infant sisters whose hearts had stopped for no reason. But after he rubbed up their scrolls and waist along the lines of the grain to the highest sheen, they took on the knowing posture of women in silk gowns, in magazine ads for new cars and ocean voyages. And as if a violin were a car in storage that needed a spin around the block every so often, for 15 minutes he would play each one, though not until each horsehair bow was precisely tightened and coated with rosin, and when he had undergone an eon of tuning. When he played, no one was allowed to speak to him. He seemed to see something drastic across the room or feel it through his handkerchief to wipe away every tear.
Sarah Shord again, and I'm reading for Brian Maddock, who's at Arizona State Prison in Florence, Arizona. And this poem is called Widower. Your old sugarcane house droops on the mantel. Tiny roof tiles shed pouty red flakes that match the bottle in your drawer. I bump into your absence as I shake out the sheet to make our bed, and again I reach for coffee. Something moves on the edge. When I look, I see hummingbirds line up at our once bright plastic feeders, hovering over a too sweet reason not to do otherwise. That creosote footpath remains. I fall in behind an army of red ants, navigating flagstone continents. The sun retreats, littering your onion bulbs with copper shards. I surrender to the hours. When I wake, I'm a saguaro skeleton, staring at Orion. Infant spiders drift through me on silken kites of breeze.
I'm Piper Kerman. I'm going to read Where I Have Been by John F. Steele, who is at the Northeast New Mexico Detention Facility in Clayton, New Mexico. Traversing the slope of a gale-scoured peak, bailing water from a boat with a fatal leak, dwarfed by pines fringing a quiet vale, stuffed in a box mounting the subway's rail. These are places where I have been, but not for years, and never again. Amidst reef sharks in the Caribbean Sea, skinning an elk hung from a low branching tree, flung to and fro on a carnival ride, viewing the earth whilst in free fall glide. These are places where I have been, but not for years, and never again. Crawling through caves formed by magma's flow, surfing waves lit with fluorescent glow, fastened to clefts in El Capitan's face, sated and lounging in woman's embrace. These are places where I have been, but not for years, and never again.
I'm John Wray, and I'm going to be reading a poem called Search Engine by Sean J. White, who's at the New Lisbon Correctional Institute in New Lisbon, Wisconsin. The Incas kept record in knots, spider webs in the ether of fiber optics. I knew a kid in school who shot spiders with a pellet gun, a word within 10 of another word, or perhaps even another. A different sort of record, scratching out sounds, mesh wrapped around a culture of bacteria. We are a metaphor akin to Moore's Law, a little soap and water to wash away a dotted landscape. Of screaming capitals, populated sites in the distance, I sighted a derailed train, scrapped, cloth sewn into quilted patterns, knotted records like the Incas kept, yes or no or maybe.
Hi, my name is Tim Small, and I help run the prison writing program along with Jackson. All of the winners of our annual writing contest are awarded with a monetary prize. They also receive the prize of getting to correspond through the mail with a writing mentor on the outside. These correspondences revolve around the work of the incarcerated writer and in some cases they've lasted several years. In the last part of tonight's program, we are going to hear a few of these letters. Don Lundy Martin, Khalil Cumberbatch, and Mitchell Jackson will share these letters.
Mentorship correspondence number 1. Dear Sarah, thank you for your wonderful letter, and thank you for your feedback on Say Sorry. I'm happy you enjoyed it. I used some of my prize money from Penn to pay a guy to type it up for me. It took him twice as long to get it done because he was too busy reading it. Before I get too deep into this, please allow me to say that I am seriously in thought concerning your views on how to set up the reveal at the end between Ron and his history with Kenny. I'm picturing several ways to insert a bit of drama between Ron and Christina, maybe the hint or two in front of Mason, the mention of Kenny's name to Trish, along with a snide comment or two for Christina's benefit. Something to consider. And I definitely agree on the Ron/prisoner/sooner, as well as your points on him coming home to find her gone. You were good. And there's no way you were being prescriptive. I agree that Say Sorry could be a novella or a short story. I originally envisioned it as a screenplay. I was toying with the idea of adding more of Christina's introspection/dialogue into the play in order to show her inner thoughts as a way of giving voice to all the things she never had the guts to say out loud. Also, her reveals aren't really for or heard by the others in the play. They are in a state of being frozen, lights down, until she finishes. These are pivotal moments, and I'm glad to finally have someone to explore, share this vision with. Sincerely, Derek.
Good evening again. My name is Khalil Cumberbatch, and I'll be reading Mentorship Correspondence number 2. Dear Carrie, on Sunday morning I watched the news programs and various discussions about the recent Supreme Court rulings, the Affordable Care Act, and same-sex marriage. Personally, the court system, much less the Supreme Court, isn't the best representative of our national conscience, nor does it have a lot of moral high ground with me. True, they got it right this time, but they have also lost a significant amount of credibility through other important rulings. This is the same court whose predecessor made the Dred Scott decision, the same court that decided against Loving v. Virginia and interracial marriage, and more recently, Citizens United, and ruling that corporations are citizens. How can any of us trust their judgments when coming rulings could be equally detrimental to the middle and lower classes and historically marginalized? Anyway, that's my take. Stepping off my little soapbox now. Enclosed is Another Day, a poem I'm considering for my 2015 Penn submission, and a short story, Ear Hustling. Please let me know what you think. The outline for my tattoo story, now titled Ink, is going well. I'm so looking forward to fleshing out this piece. I can already sense that it's going to be a strange ride. The characters, their issues, and the therapeutic properties of their tattoos contain myriad possibilities that make me smile. Take care of yourself, Carrie, and have a great day. P.S. We've been writing about random encounters with words, and I was reading a New Yorker and came across the word adsorption, which means the calculation of gases, liquids, or solutes on the surface of a solid or liquid. I immediately saw a use of this word in ink and a cool outline for how adsorption or the adsorbing properties of tattoo ink could be beneficial or detrimental. I'm looking forward to exploring this angle. Thank you, New Yorker. Greg.
Hello. My name is Mitchell Jackson. Dear Maria, thank you for the fabulous and interesting packet full of goodies. I devoured it in line by line. It was like receiving a package full of love. You made such a dark place so much brighter. In your letter, you commented on my poem, Mastermind. You noted my illustration that prison is what you make of it. But you went on to say, and the same thing is true in life, which, strangely, had never occurred to me until you said it. I spent a lot of time thinking about why I'm able to clearly see what it takes to get the most out of prison, but wasn't able to apply that very same concept in life. Hopefully, I can learn to apply my creative insight to my future in freedom. With tears, Michael. Sedimentary by Charles Patrick Norman, Columbia Correctional Institute in Lake City, Florida. Years before we moved into the little white house, on the hill a road construction crew sliced off. The hillside edge to make way for the highway, as easily as Mama cut a loaf of sourdough bread. Rains washed down the hillside and flowed into a drainage ditch beside the road, revealing layers of soil, sand, clay, and limestone rock that provided endless hours of fascination for 3 little boys. Standing back and taking in the colored layers before me, digging into the interesting hues with a teaspoon, I uncovered a broken chipped flint arrowhead crafted by some hunter, forgotten and long dead, transporting me back to a prehistoric Florida wilderness untamed by the white man's machinery. Imagine hunting with the creek ghost for deer and squirrel, leaving behind no evidence of their passing except for that sharpened arrow tip. Another day I dug into a deeper orange clay and found fragments of petrified wood lying where the tree fell onto the forest floor eons before men came. Then came ancient seashells embedded in a mysterious layer of sand that tasted salt on my tongue. Tiny white periwinkles, clams, and scallops, still perfect in their symmetry, sleeping next to a darkened, stained shark's tooth I saved. Our miniature Grand Canyon never failed to reveal hidden treasures to my digging, mementos I save in a cigar box with old coins. One day, as I silently pondered my life and events from childhood, digging deeply for lost memories, I realized that my life was like that hillside, composed over a layer upon layer of sedimentary experiences, waiting for me to scrape away with the sand with my spoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just want to say that what we did tonight is to stop and to kind of take the time to celebrate important voices that we don't get to hear often. This is the beauty of a prison writing program at Penn. I think that is very touching and moving. I want to note that Mitchell is coming from class, so he ran from his students in order to close out the program tonight. Sarah came from the West Coast to be here tonight with us and read this work. Piper Kerman, she said, if I'm in New York, I'll come, and she came. Everybody who read tonight just said this is important enough to stop and to take the time to celebrate these voices. And I thank you for being the audience tonight. Thank you so much. In closing, I wanted to also thank our funders, the Stravis Niarchos Foundation, R.S. Evans Foundation, and the Francis Greenberger Foundation for the support of the program. And as you can tell, this is a vital program. And like Jackson said at the beginning, if you know how to get more money, let us know. And then I would like to also note that page 20 in your booklet for the festival, you'll see that we have a program that is also coming out of a prison writing program. It's called Prison Branding in the Age of Mass Incarceration, and we're going to talk about the marketing and the branding of this business that is prisons in the United States. So again, hopefully we see you on April 30th at 1 at the Cooper Union. If not, stay connected with Penn, and thank you again for coming. Good night.